Please like and subscribe. It will help our channel. So, huge news for veterans just came out.
Yeah, pretty big.
The House, they went ahead and passed this, like, massive bill.
Right.
And it had crazy bipartisan support, which is kind of unheard of these days.
Definitely these days, yeah.
We're talking about H.R. 8371. It's got a pretty long official name. The Senator Elizabeth Dole, 21st Century Veterans Health Care and Benefits Improvement Act.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful,
but it's a good one, though.
It is a good one.
It covers a lot. I mean, this thing touches on, like, pretty much everything for vets. Healthcare, benefits, jobs, even help for their families and caregivers. It's
huge.
It really shows, like, a commitment to actually dealing with the range of needs that veterans have.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We've got articles here that break down the bill, statements from politicians and veterans groups, and even some stuff about how this whole thing even came together in the first place. So let's do a breakdown. Let's talk about what's in the bill, why everybody's buzzing about it, and, what it can mean for vets going forward.
All right. Before we jump into the bill itself, I think it's important to look back a bit. This bill is named after Senator Elizabeth Dole. She actually just received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And, she's been advocating for veterans and military families for decades, like going all the way back to when she was the first woman to be the Secretary of Labor and then later running the American Red Cross. I mean,
that's amazing. I mean, she's a real force.
Yeah, she's definitely a powerhouse.
Yeah. One of the articles we've got actually has a quote from her where she's talking about how both parties came together on this. She said, "I am eager to see this package now quickly pass in the Senate." So it sounds like she's really hoping that this will actually make a difference.
I think it's huge, that bipartisan support, right? I mean, over 50 organizations are backing this, and we're talking, big veteran service organizations, groups focused on preventing homelessness, even tech companies that have those, job training programs for vets. Having such a, broad range of support, it shows you how important these changes are.
Yeah. Okay, so let's break this thing down. It's massive. It's split into 5 sections. It covers healthcare, jobs, homelessness, everything. One thing that really jumped out at me was this section about making it easier for vets to get care out in their communities. Yeah. So, not just through the VA.
Yeah, I think that's a really significant change. Right now, getting care outside the VA can be
nightmare.
A complete nightmare. Bureaucracy, paperwork, all that. This bill is trying to cut through all that red tape. So it basically gives vets and their doctors more power to decide what's best. So if, for example, your VA doctor says, hey, you need to see a specialist or you need a treatment the VA can't offer, this makes it a lot easier to get that care in your own community.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to me. Giving veterans more choices, especially when it comes to their health care.
Absolutely.
Another thing that caught my eye, this pilot program to provide dental care for vets diagnosed with ischemic heart disease seems
a little random.
Kind of random, yeah. Why dental care?
Yeah, it might seem that way at first, but there's actually a growing body of research that shows a link between your oral health and your heart health.
Oh, wow.
So this pilot program, I mean, it's really being proactive. They're trying to prevent potential heart problems down the line for vets who already have a heart condition. I think that's, it's forward thinking.
It really makes you think about, how connected our bodies are.
Definitely.
Okay, so this bill also tackles a really serious topic. All right. Veteran suicide prevention.
Yeah, that's obviously a top priority for the VA and Congress. And this bill, it's pushing for a much deeper look into veteran suicide every year. It's not just about the numbers anymore. They're looking at trends, trying to figure out what factors contribute to these tragedies. They even have a specific thing in there where they want to look at suicide rates among vets who use different VA programs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they're trying to see if there are any patterns.
Exactly.
Could they, by looking at how a veteran was using the VA before they died, give us clues about what kind of support might have helped?
Exactly. They also want an independent group to come in and look at how the VA is collecting its data on suicide. They want to make sure it's accurate, that it's actually useful for creating strategies to prevent these tragedies. They really want to know if there's anything, in the way they collect the data, that's skewing things,
Right. And it's not just the veterans themselves getting attention. There's a whole section about improving mental health support for the people who are taking care of veterans.
Yeah, caregivers, they play such a vital role, but it's a really tough job. physically and emotionally demanding.
Absolutely.
This bill is recognizing that, and it calls for grants to go to organizations that provide mental health services specifically for caregivers. They even call them hidden heroes.
I like that. That's a really good way to put it. There's also a part about education benefits that I thought was pretty interesting. It expands the Marine Gunnery Sergeant John David Fry Scholarship, which helps pay for school for the kids and spouses of service members who die in the line of duty.
And the big change here, the really important part, is that they're getting rid of the time limit for spouses to use it. So before, they had a certain window, but now they can take their time, which makes a big difference for people who might need to delay school for, family reasons or other things in their lives.
Okay, and getting veterans ready for the future. There's a pilot program in here that wants to help vets move into high-tech jobs. It would offer financial aid for training in things like, cybersecurity and software development.
Exactly, because those are the jobs of the future.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about recognizing that veterans have a lot to offer, but they need the skills to succeed in the modern workforce.
Absolutely.
And the bill specifically says these training programs have to meet certain standards. They want to make sure vets are getting quality education.
Yeah, they're not just like throwing money at the problem. They're really trying to create real pathways.
Exactly.
Now, getting a bill this big passed, it's never easy.
No, never.
One of our sources actually has a quote from Congressman Takano. He's the top Democrat on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. He talked about some of the roadblocks, especially disagreements over community care, and I think he called them mandatory spending offsets.
Yeah, those were definitely some of the stickiest points during the negotiations. Community care has always been kind of controversial, right? Some people worry that expanding it too much will hurt the VA system. And those mandatory spending offsets, basically, that means if you want to spend money on new programs, you got to figure out how to pay for them within the existing budget.
Right, which can be tricky.
Very tricky. A lot of juggling.
And, speaking of people who really fight for veterans, Congresswoman Branley has been pushing hard for expanding access to home and community-based care.
Yes. She's been a
Champion for that.
definitely a champion for that. And it looks like some of her work is actually reflected in this bill.
Yeah, there are a few programs in the bill that are designed to help vets age in their homes, keep them out of, nursing homes and things like that, unless they absolutely need that level of care.
Yeah, it's all about helping veterans stay independent for as long as possible.
It's about choice, giving them more control over their lives.
Exactly. And it's about understanding that, what a veteran needs might change over time, and the support system needs to be flexible enough to adapt to that.
That makes a lot of sense. So this bill, it's really addressing a whole spectrum of needs.
It is. It is. It's really trying to take a more holistic view of veteran care, not just focusing on one aspect, but recognizing that all these things are interconnected.
And, one of the things that keeps coming up in these sources is this idea of cutting through the bureaucracy, making the VA more responsive.
More efficient, more human.
Yeah.
More human.
Because there's been a lot of frustration,
Right.
delays, paperwork, just this feeling that the system isn't always working as well as it should.
And so it seems like this bill is trying to fix that. Simplifying things, giving veterans more options.
Right. Putting veterans at the center.
Exactly.
Not treating them like a case number.
And I also noticed they put in some checks and balances. There's this thing where the VA has to report to Congress regularly about how these programs are actually being put into practice.
That's super important.
Yeah, it keeps them accountable.
Accountability and transparency, yeah.
Right. And it helps, catch any problems early on.
Exactly. If a program isn't working, they can adjust it.
Right.
It's about constantly evaluating and improving.
It is pretty amazing to see this kind of focus on veterans' care, especially with this level of support from both parties. I think it shows that we as a society, we're finally starting to understand that we have a responsibility to take care of our veterans.
And this isn't just about giving them benefits. It's about giving them, real chances to succeed.
It's about empowering them to build good lives.
Yeah. Looking through all this, one thing that's really struck me is how many different voices are being represented here. We're hearing from lawmakers, veterans groups, caregivers, even veterans themselves.
And that's what makes this bill so powerful, right? It didn't just appear out of nowhere. This is the result of a lot of people coming together, working together to make things better for veterans.
And it shows that we, as a country, are committed to making sure those who served get the support they deserve.
Absolutely. And that support has to go beyond just, thanking them for their service. It has to be tangible. It has to be real.
There's a quote here from Congressman Siscomani. He's the one who actually introduced the bill. He said, "The Senator Elizabeth Dole 21st Century Veterans Healthcare and Benefits Improvement Act makes great strides to close gaps in economic opportunity and care by reforming and modernizing the VA, cutting unnecessary red tape, expanding access to employment opportunities, addressing veteran homelessness, and improving the delivery of care and benefits, whether at the VA or at home."
He really covered it all there, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he really hit all the major points. He emphasized that it's not just about healthcare. It's about looking at the whole picture.
Yeah.
All the different challenges veterans face.
It's about understanding that their needs are complex and interconnected. And I think that's a really important shift in how we think about veteran care.
Absolutely. Now, while this bill covers a lot, I think we need to take a closer look at mental health.
Oh, absolutely. Mental health is such a critical part of overall well-being, and for veterans, it's something that often presents unique challenges.
Yeah, and we have to remember that a lot of veterans are dealing with trauma, stress, and other mental health issues that are directly connected to their service.
And those challenges, they can make it incredibly difficult to transition back to civilian life, to find work, to maintain healthy relationships. It affects everything.
This bill actually tackles mental health from a few different angles. We already talked about improving suicide prevention and supporting caregivers.
Right. And there are also sections that focus specifically on making mental health services more accessible, both through the VA and in their communities.
Right. Like one thing that stood out to me was this push to make it easier for vets to get mental health care through telehealth.
Oh, telehealth is a game changer, especially for veterans in rural areas or those who have trouble getting to a VA facility. It removes so many barriers.
And the bill also encourages the VA to work with community organizations that specialize in mental health services for veterans.
That's huge, because it acknowledges that the VA can't do it all alone. Those community organizations are often really plugged into their local areas, and they can provide that kind of specialized support that really meets the needs of the veterans in that specific community.
It just gives veterans more options. Right.
Ah,
And it allows them to get care in a setting that feels comfortable and familiar.
exactly. It's about creating a whole network of support, not just relying on the VA as the only option.
I also noticed that this bill has a lot to say about helping veterans who are experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, that's another huge issue.
Yeah.
And it's a complex one. But for veterans, it's often made worse by things like, the trauma they've experienced, mental health struggles, and even just difficulty navigating the system to get the benefits they're entitled to.
And the bill tries to address this in a few ways, right?
It does. It increases funding for programs that provide transitional housing and support services, things like job training to help veterans get back on their feet. It also expands eligibility for some VA housing programs and encourages the VA to work with community organizations to reach out to those at risk of becoming homeless.
So they're really trying to
Yeah,
be proactive,
absolutely.
instead of just reacting after someone's already on the streets.
It's about prevention as much as it is about intervention.
It's about recognizing that we have a responsibility to ensure that those who have served our country have a safe and stable place to live.
And that's something we should all be able to agree on. Nobody who has served our country should be left without a home.
Absolutely. And it's inspiring to see how this bill tries to address the needs of veterans at all stages of their lives, from those transitioning back to civilian life to older veterans who might need extra help.
It's about recognizing that the journey doesn't end when you leave active duty. The support and care need to continue.
One of the sources actually pointed out a provision that would create a pilot program to give financial aid to veterans who are getting training or education in high-demand fields, like we were talking about earlier, cybersecurity, software development.
Those are the fields where there are tons of jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so this program, it's about recognizing that veterans have skills and experience that are valuable, and we need to help them translate those assets into successful careers.
Absolutely. It's about investing in their future and making sure they have the tools to thrive in the civilian workforce.
And the bill also includes parts about improving access to education benefits, like making it easier for veterans to use their GI Bill.
It's about removing those roadblocks, making the process smoother and more user-friendly for veterans. They've earned those benefits. They shouldn't have to jump through hoops to use them.
And it's not just about the money, right? It's also about providing resources and support to help veterans navigate that transition to civilian life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the transition can be tough. It's a big adjustment, and veterans need guidance and support to make that shift successfully.
And this bill, I mean, it seems like it's all about creating a system where veterans can actually thrive, not just get by.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
To create a society where our veterans are not just surviving, but truly flourishing, reaching their full potential and contributing to their communities in meaningful ways.
Well said. And this bill really does feel like a huge step in the right direction.
It's a big win for veterans and for all of us who believe in supporting those who have served our country.
But as we've talked about, there's still work to be done. Implementation is key.
Oh, absolutely. We have to make sure these changes actually happen, that they're effective, and that veterans are seeing real benefits.
And we have to remember that the needs of veterans are constantly evolving.
Exactly. We have to stay flexible, stay adaptable, and always be willing to adjust our approach as those needs change.
This bill is a milestone, but it's not the end of the journey.
It's a new chapter,
And it's a commitment we all need to share.
a commitment to ensuring that those who have served our country get the support and care they deserve. Not just today, but for years to come.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us for this breakdown of the Senator Elizabeth Dole 21st Century Veterans Healthcare and Benefits Improvement Act.
It's been a pleasure discussing this important piece of legislation with you.
And as always, we encourage you to stay informed, stay involved, and keep supporting our veterans in any way you can.
Absolutely. Every action, big or small, makes
Yeah.
a difference.
And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep bringing you more content like this.
We appreciate your support.